Welcome back, Cubs. Dire Wolf here, and joining me today is Foxy, and we're going to talk about how the radical left is trying to destroy comedy. How might you ask? Well, Foxy, please introduce yourself and explain how is the radical left destroying comedy.
Thank you, Dire Wolf, and hello to Dire Wolf's cubs and my very own kids. I'm Foxy, just your adorable, cute, privileged fox with a desire to destroy the souls of SJWs everywhere. This is a great topic to touch on because comedy is such an essential part of the human experience. However, the left is on a warpath to destroy comedy. They use political correctness as a tool to censor anyone they see guilty of wrongthing and jokes they don't approve of. It's become quite alarming how rampant it is now. Comedians are labeled racist, sexist, or even homophobic, or even Nazi, for jokes that are not politically correct. Jokes and even certain words are becoming off limits simply because the left fear that it would become offensive to someone, or they don't agree with the content of the joke or the comedian. Comedians are being banned from speaking and even losing their jobs. Political correctness is just censorship with a different name. It is also a form of social engineering. The left hide behind the guise of being inclusive and tolerant, but what they are doing is censoring anyone they don't like or don't agree with, in an attempt to control people. They use terms like triggering and microaggression and other buzzwords to essentially label a comedian a heretic. Comedy is so important to us as humans because it's been a way for us to break down barriers, fight real tyranny, and even help us get past traumas in our very own lives. Comedy is there to make people laugh, not to be touchy-feely.
Thank you very much for joining me on this topic, and you are absolutely right. The social justice warrior's main weapon is political correctness and the redefining and limiting of speech. It has already been discussed at length how destructive political correctness is to society. We've seen the effects in both social and political arenas as well as in academia, but it is not discussed enough how political correctness is used to limit what can be mocked for the sake of comedy. And not only does it limit what subjects can be joked about, it is also applied arbitrarily to attack people who oppose the political positions of the radical left. As an example, when left-leaning comedians and stars make jokes about Hitler, it's considered funny. When Sarah Silverman and the comedians from Saturday Night Live dressed up like and made jokes about Hitler, they were considered funny. There was no backlash and no outrage, and no one wrote articles calling them a racist. When someone who disagrees with them and spends time mocking the left, like PewDiePie, makes a joke about Hitler, they get outraged. And they publish article after article calling him a racist and a neo-Nazi. Not only because he told a joke they didn't think was funny, but also because they didn't like the fact that he was the one making the joke. What the left are doing is treating some people and subjects as being above mockery. And they've created themselves as being the arbiters of what things can be mocked, and they try to destroy anyone who mocks the things that they try to keep sacred. The comedian Chris Rock lamented once that it is becoming harder and harder to be a comedian because it only would take one person who was overly offended at one of your jokes to destroy someone's career. One great article that explains the view of the left towards comedy was written in Jezebel by Lindy West, who was a self-proclaimed feminist comedian. In an article named An Open Letter to White Male Comedians, she explains two ideas that are at the core of how the left view comedy.
Now, you can talk about controversial subjects. In fact, you should talk about controversial subjects because comedy is an incredibly powerful subversive tool. But if you want people like me to stop bitching at you, you need to stop using your comedy to make those things worse. You don't have to make things better. You're under no obligation to save the world. Not if you're actively making things worse for people, especially when you are not a member of the group whose existence you are making worse. Don't be surprised when people complain.
In this section, she says she doesn't want you using comedy as a tool on opposing sides of an issue, and then accuses people that are taking different political stances in their comedies actively making the lives of different groups more difficult, as if the mocking of the insane, sexist policies of feminism is somehow in any way close to how the left crucify and mock any female conservative like Palin. Anti-social justice warriors and anti-feminists attack the ideas of the left, whereas the left attack the people and try to destroy the persons with the idea. In this clip, she demonstrates her hypocrisy in saying that she believes that comedy should be a tool used to support her political ideology, but it shouldn't be used against it.
She says in the same article that it's an additional sin to criticize a group of people that you don't belong to, that it's off limits, you're not allowed to do that. This is some amazing mental gymnastics here. Using her very own logic, she's not allowed to joke about any straight white male comedians because she's not a male. Or is she? She's also painfully not funny, so she's not allowed to joke about people who are actually funny. And she's definitely not allowed to joke about skinny women. This is going to create a protected group of people who are shielded from any kind of criticism or joke. That's dangerous ground to be playing on. Once a group of people become protected from any form of criticism, they become empowered, and they feel that they can do anything they want. And again, that's very, very dangerous ground to be playing on.
If you're an able-bodied straight white male, you are by definition a member of the least number of systemically oppressed groups. It takes an entire blog post for me to make you feel diminished and misunderstood. My bad, but you could do that to me or a gay person or a trans person or a person of color or a disabled person with just one word. Because you get to live your life on the firm ground of being a human being first and a white male person comedian second. I don't get to do that. I'm not a person, I'm a woman, which is something I'm reminded of incessantly anytime I enter a male-dominated space like a comedy club.
That was a lot of social justice, identity, politics, and sanity in a small statement. Let's take it one piece at a time. First off, no matter what label you give me, no matter what level of victimhood status you give me, it does not determine what I can mock.
Second, how can anyone in their right mind believe that anybody in the West can legitimately be labeled oppressed in this day and age? The West is the land of the privilege and prosperity with guaranteed human rights. And I don't care what any regressive says, no one's human rights are withheld from them in the West. We are living in a damn golden age where we have more than what we need. Minorities actually have more rights than those evil white males. And yes, women are also part of that protected class, and they also get more rights. Regressives need to seriously wake up. They remind me of Baruka from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, a spoiled little child with everything that they need and at their fingertips, yet they whine and cry for more. And if you don't give them what they want, they throw a damn temper tantrum.
Third, you downplay the reprehensible demonizing you and the left perpetrate against able-bodied straight white males. And not in the context of comedy that can be avoided by an offended consumer, but they are saturated daily in our news media, in our schools, with a message that they are evil, sexist, racist bigots based solely on their skin color, not because of their actions. Do you really not see how what you are doing is orders of magnitudes greater than me saying you're not funny? How can you downplay the messaging of the left on this white male demographic when the white male demographic has such a high suicide rate, which is partly due to the very attitude that you're expressing in this article?
Fourth, she acts as though minority groups and females, which females are not technically a part of a minority group, are so fragile that if they hear a single word that could trigger them, their lives are destroyed. They experience great harm. And by the way, they don't have to be in these nightclubs or these comedy clubs. They're not forced to be there. I mean, what the hell, Lindy? Do you have so low expectations of these groups? Why are you preaching to them that they are this delicate? This will never help them in life. Everyone needs to learn how to handle jokes. They need to toughen up, get thick skin, don't wear the chip on your shoulder kind of thing. Grow up. I can't fathom people living like this, being so sensitive to jokes and being triggered at anything that they hear. This is not a way to live. That's kind of boring and sad.
So to recap, the regressive left believes that offensive comedy should not be used against the regressive left, but only against their opponents, because their special victim status is sacred and should not be mocked. And then second, that if you're not part of the special victim status group, then you cannot be critical of it.
Here's a BBC article covering the power imbalance you can actually see in comedy.
There is a power imbalance, and as such, it isn't as harmful when a black comedian does jokes about white people not being able to dance as it is when white middle-class comedians do their material about black urban, codename for black, youth, typically portraying them as violent, ignorant, homophobic criminals that speak in slang I've never actually heard outside a comedy club. The same comparison can be used with jokes for women, with men being the butt of the joke.
So basically what this article is saying is that a comedian who falls into a minority group like a black person or a female is able to joke about a majority group like white males. However, the reverse cannot be said. A white male comedian is branded a racist if he jokes about a black person, or a sexist if he jokes about a female, or a homophobe if he jokes about a gay guy. How hypocritical is that? A black guy can joke about white guys, but a white guy can't joke about black guys? Or how about a female can joke about a male, but a male can't joke about a female? That is bad word. That is very retarded. I'm trying not to say bad words in this. They are placing one group of people over another one, and they're making that one group safe from being mocked. This is retarded. Regressives have certain groups of people that they believe are victims, so they must protect them from everything at all costs, including from jokes.
This hypersensitivity, this political correctness, has been used to silence many comedians, and is destroying comedy. As exemplified in this article, Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock, meanwhile, have said that college audiences have become quick to condemn a joke as being racist or sexist. Rock has gone further, telling New York Magazine that he started to censor himself at gigs in case someone's recording him with their phone. Once upon a time, comedians could try out edgy jokes in front of a small crowd, and if it was greeted with a gasp instead of laughs, they know not to tell the joke again. Now, though, the edgy joke can be broadcasted to an almost limitless number of people via social media, so comedians are forced to be more careful. In fact, it's become commonplace for comedians, radio and TV show hosts to be fired over one joke that is even just mildly offensive. As an example, the comedian Gilbert Gottfried was fired as the Aflac Duck. Not even his comedian job. He was fired from another job because he sent tweets that were seen as being insensitive. The Aflac Duck lost his voice Monday after an insurance giant fired the comedian behind the commercial quack for tweeting jokes about the earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan. The Columbus and Georgia-based company fired Gilbert Gottfried less than an hour after discovering the tweets, according to the news release from Aflac, which, when you look at the tweets, was a complete overreaction. The left don't just want you to apologize for something that you said that offended them, they want to destroy you. Not that we should care about hurt feelings, because unlike what Riley Dennis says, hurting someone's feelings is not violence. But this is not about hurt feelings. This is an authoritarian tactic to silence people that they disagree with. What were some of the horribly offensive things that Gilbert said? Well, he tweeted out,
Japan called me and said maybe those jokes are a hit in the US, but over here, they're sinking.
That joke has no sign of bigotry. He's just trying to make light of a serious situation. You need to be able to laugh at the macabre. It's a way of coping. If you can't laugh at it, then you have a debilitating sensitivity that's going to make it impossible for you to deal with the situation. He also tweeted out,
I was talking to my Japanese real estate agent. I said, is there a school in the area? She said, not now, but just wait.
That's a funny joke, and for relatively unoffensive jokes like this, he lost his job. He wasn't being hateful, he was not being a bigot, he was making light of a serious situation, which people do all the time in their regular lives. He was bringing joy to a moment of sadness. It's people like him who have a sense of humor about serious issues that brighten our lives, whereas people who are not like him, who don't have a sense of humor, are people we don't want to be around. Those are the people who got him fired. And this epidemic of oversensitivity and humorless people getting people fired from their jobs for telling bad jokes or jokes they don't understand is not limited to only professional comedians. Because of this information age, social media allows edgy or misunderstood jokes to offend snowflakes all around the world who don't even understand the person or the context of the joke. A great example is 10 Veritas Cafe employees fired over a slave joke they posted in a Help Wanted ad. A graduate student association shut down the popular cafe at Winifred University in Waterloo after posting the satirical Help Wanted ad.
We need a new slave, full-time staff member, to boss, mentor, around the Veritas Cafe. We are an independent cafe. Yeah, me. Located on campus at Winifred Lawyer University. Parking sucks. We sell wake-up juice, coffee, espresso drinks, confidence boosters, beer, dancing liquid, alcohol drinks, life fuel, paninis, wraps, soup, salad, desserts. This cafe position is mainly Monday through Friday. No way. But sometimes weekends. But usually not. But maybe.
Any rational person reading that article could tell it's a joke. But oversensitive snowflakes found it rational to destabilize the economic lives of 10 people over what was obviously a joke. And only because they mentioned one of the sacred words in the social justice religion, slavery. They weren't even mocking anything. With this level of intolerance to offense, there's no way we could actually mock something that is sacred to these social justice warriors. And mockery is an important tool for pointing out the absurdity, the hypocrisy, and the corruption in opposing arguments. It mixes entertainment with rationality and is more easily absorbed by the greater public. It is important that all sides of an argument have the ability to be critical of all the other sides of an argument through mockery. This keeps all sides in check and keeps them honest. And without it, you end up with an echo chamber with unvetted ideas. I wouldn't want to take away the left's ability to use mockery to critique my ideas. And the left have many comedians such as Amar Raham who do just that. Amar identifies himself as a black Muslim, and he is openly racist towards white people, but he believes it's okay because in the social justice religion, you cannot be racist towards an oppressor, and he sees white people as being the oppressors. In fact, bigotry towards the majority, or the oppressors, is encouraged in the cultural Marxist ideology, which creates a strange hypocrisy where they feel they can be intentionally offensive and critical towards white straight males with no backlash and is considered moral and acceptable. And if any white straight male or anyone not in the group that they have identified as being oppressed and sacred tries to be critical and intentionally offensive towards those groups, then they are immediately evil Nazis and must be destroyed. They exercise incredible doublethink by saying it is okay to use offensive language to point out the hypocrisy and stupidity of white straight males, but that it is not okay to use offensive language to point out the hypocrisy and stupidity of any other group.
We have a lot of white people here today. White people have generally avoided our show so far. I have a question, actually. I have a question for white people in the audience. It's a general question that's been on my mind for a while for white people. What the hell is your problem? I'm sure we can all comfortably agree that no one in this country has a scarier drinking problem than white people. When white people have a party, 1 minute it's a party, and the next minute it's the Nazi party. You and your friends have a barbecue, and within half an hour that manages to mutate into a 5,000 strong Hitler Youth rally. Maybe there's something wrong with your culture. I don't really want a kid, man. I just want to look fashionable. So if I had a white baby, I'd just keep it in the fridge and take it out when I need it. Oh man. A couple of babies in the fridge. I know, I'm kidding. You've got to put them in the freezer. Otherwise, you know, they get soggy and they lose their shape. I really do. I like white people. Look, man, I speak your language. I eat your traditional cultural foods. Wheat Bix, whatever you call it. And you know, that's white people's contribution to civilization, I guess. Breakfast cereal. And you know, there's no shame in that. What did Muslims invent? Just boring stuff like, you know, mathematics, science, numbers. But hey, you know, it's not a competition or anything.
I actually don't care much for this comedian. I'm not a fan of his jokes, really. But you know what? He has the right and freedom to make whatever joke he wants. And I'm not offended to the point that I'm triggered. Absolutely not. And I'm not overly sensitive that I can't handle his jokes. I don't have to like someone's jokes, but they have the right to say them. And I'll fight for their right to say them. But this can't be said for the left. If this comedian was a white guy making a joke about a black guy, they would be out for blood. And they would publicly crucify him. Thankfully, I'm not super sensitive, so he can say whatever the hell he wants.
If I thought the same way the left does, I would be so thin-skinned and offended that I would demand that he be fired. But I don't mind his jokes because I don't have to watch his comedy routine. I don't have to go and pay money to see him. In fact, I like that people like him exist because then I can point to him as an example of the hypocrisy, bigotry, and racial intolerance of the left. People like him and the fact that he has a large following help me discredit their movement. If we suppress their hateful, bigoted voices, they would be a dark undercurrent in our culture, much like the alt-right did for the right. If you try to suppress and ignore their voices, it doesn't mean they won't be able to affect social change. It just will go unanswered, like the alt-right did with the election of Donald Trump. It's better to shine a light on their destructive, hateful opinions so we can then disprove them.
A lot of people don't like my comedy. A lot of white people don't like my comedy. A lot of white people say this to me. Hey, Amir. Hey. You get on stage, you make your jokes about white people. You say white people this, white people that. What if I did something like that, huh? What if I got on stage and I said, yeah, black people are like this, Muslims are like that. You'd probably call me a racist, wouldn't you? And I say, yeah, I would. Yeah, you should never do that. That's bad for your health. They're like, well, you do that, Amir. You do that. You get on stage, you make your jokes about white people. Don't you think that's a kind of racism? Don't you think that's dun 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 reverse racism? I said no. I don't think that's reverse racism. Not because I think reverse racism doesn't exist, right? If you ask some black and brown people, they'll tell you flat out there is no such thing as reverse racism. I don't agree with that. I think there is such a thing as reverse racism, and I could be a reverse racist if I wanted to. All I would need would be a time machine, right? And what I'd do is I'd get in my time machine, I'd go back in time to before Europe colonized the world, right? And I'd convince the leaders of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Central and South America to invade and colonize Europe, right? Just occupy them, steal their land and resources, set up some kind of, like, I don't know, trans-Asian slave trade where we exported white people to work on giant rice plantations in China. Just ruin Europe over the course of a couple of centuries so all their descendants would want to migrate out and live in the places where black and brown people come from. But of course, in that time, I'd make sure I set up systems that privilege black and brown people at every conceivable social, political, and economic opportunity. The white people would never have any hope of real self-determination. Just every couple of decades, make up some fake war as an excuse to go and bomb them back to the Stone Age and say it's for their own good because their culture's inferior, and then, just for kicks, subject white people to colored people's standards of beauty, so they end up hating the color of their own skin, eyes, and hair. If, after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of that, I got on stage at a comedy show and said, hey, what's the deal with white people? Why can't they dance? That would be reverse racism. Melvin Flunky, you've been great. Good night!
First off, you're wrong. Reverse racism is not a thing. Racial bigotry is racial bigotry, and that is racism. It doesn't matter if being racist towards a white person, it's still racism.
How are people guilty of the crimes and mistakes committed by generations before them? There's an old saying that I think really does apply here. Don't punish the child for the sins of the father. Just because people are descendants of people who have made mistakes or done something wrong, doesn't mean those descendants are going to be the same as those that they are descended from. And here's a great example, and I can put this in more modern terms. Let's say you were hired onto a new job, but the guy that you replaced was fired because he did a terrible job and he never did anything. Should your employer punish you for the previous worker not doing his job? I don't think so. And regressives need to stop assuming that descendants carry the guilt of those they are descended from. I'm pretty sure the regressives have people in their bloodlines that have done bad things. So should we punish them as well? Food for thought.
Also, black and brown people, specifically Muslims, have conquered, pillaged, and enslaved each other and white people many times throughout history. Do you not know it was Muslim aggression that started the Crusades? Do you not know that there's black Africans who both conquered, sold, and had black slaves? Do you not know that there was white slaves? Do you not understand that anyone with a grade school education in history can tell you're an idiot? Attempting to balance the world based on actions in the past does not make sense, because every nation has engaged in conquering. At what point in the history do you want to arbitrarily pick to move back to? And then tell me how it will make logical and practical sense and how it will further humanity. It won't, because it's stupid.
The Muslims and the African people are the ones that created the war-torn wastelands that they are living in now and trying to flee. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have never supported a representative form of government, and they are guilty of some major human rights violations. They haven't even given equal rights to women, minority groups, or homosexuals. They commit acts of violence against innocent people on a daily basis. They have honor killings, female genital mutilation, they condone rape, oppose scientific discovery, and allow modern slavery. All of this falls heel to toe in the religion and culture of the Middle East, not the West. We are not even allowed to make fun of the Prophet Muhammad for fear of being attacked or beheaded, or being classified as a racist.
And there already are systems that advantage black and brown people over every political and economic opportunity. Have you ever heard of affirmative action? Have you seen our black governors and mayors and congressmen and president? Not to mention doctors, lawyers, athletes, and owners of multi-million-dollar companies.
I mean, I'm a prime example. I'm not oppressed. I have the ability to have self-determination. I'm not held back by anybody. I have a job. I have a career. I have a home. I have a husband and family. I'm living the high life. No one's holding this little foxy back. I don't know where they think I am. I don't know why they think I'm some kind of delicate little flower that needs protection. No, 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 not this little fox. They can kiss my furry tail. I'm not oppressed. They can get over that. And no other woman is oppressed either. Dee-dee-dee.
And lastly, you create your own wars by using your hate and jealousy of the West as justification for attacking the West. Also, any culture that praises a man who rapes 9-year-old girls and that they married at 6, Muhammad, is inferior. And us recognizing that your culture is inferior doesn't mean we hate you. It just means we recognize we don't want to be like you. We see how you treat your women and your minorities, and we see how you educate your children, and we decide we don't want to do that. We don't want to live our lives that way.
All true, Wolf. But the real point is that this comedian is no less offensive than a white male comedian the left love to hate. The only difference is his bigotry is politically correct. Right now, it's politically correct to hate white people. As long as you fall within the regressive groupthink, you're going to be perfectly okay.
You're absolutely right, Foxy. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be allowed to say what he said, because obviously it gave us opportunity to show everyone else that he's an idiot and disprove him. The problem is the left is demonstrating the major pitfall of basing whether or not you have the right to say something on whether or not it offends someone. Every group and everyone in the world belongs to multiple groups, doesn't want their group mocked, because they feel like they're also being mocked personally. If your standard is to not offend anyone, then you're never going to be able to be critical of and honest about anything. And if you do what the regressives do, and you pick and choose who you cannot offend, then you create them as sacred groups. If you create a topic that's above mockery, not only are you not being equal, but taken to the most extreme, you'll see what happened in Germany and other countries, where they can jail people and suppress their voices for offending someone, where they pass laws that criminalize mocking government officials. Recently, a German comedian faced 5 years in prison in Germany for writing a mocking poem of a government official in Turkey. One of Germany's most popular young comedians is facing possibly 5-year jail sentence over a war of words with the Turkish president. Prosecutors in Germany have opened up criminal investigations against the young comedian for insulting a foreign head of state with a satirical poem. Angela Merkel, the German chancellor, condemned the poem as being deliberately harmful, which apparently is against the law. And yes, I did change the wording of this because it was worded terribly. Good job, Justin Hugler in Berlin. You suck at writing. This law will have a terrible chilling effect on the freedom of speech, but I'm not surprised at all it's coming from Germany. And it sets a horrible precedent. No government leader should be above mockery. And this is what the social Marxists would like us to be like. They'd like us to be more like Germany.
I want to show y'all a really good example of how dangerous political correctness can get. I want y'all to take your gaze and look toward North Korea. You're not allowed to make fun of Kim Jong-un. It's against the law. If you dare make fun of him, you are actually put to death. Now, I said before, comedy is a great way of helping to bring down tyranny. And this is a good example of it. They're not allowed to make fun of Kim Jong-un, so that makes him kind of like a superhuman. He's infallible. You can't touch him. Comedy brings dictators down to earth. They make them human. And if it's human and it bleeds, they can be stopped. Kim Jong-un doesn't want you to stop him, so he doesn't want you to make fun of him. He wants you to believe that he's perfect, beyond any imagination. So again, this is a great example of how dangerous political correctness can be.
Criticism and mockery are required for a free people. The freedom to offend is part of the freedom of speech, and any limit you put on that makes you less free and gives the government more power. Just because you don't like something someone said or it personally offends you doesn't mean you should ever legislate away the ability for someone to say it. In fact, shows like South Park and Family Guy and Bill Maher and The Daily Show and people who might have opinions you don't like but spend time mocking parts of our culture and all parts of our culture is healthy for it.
These shows are excellent. I love these shows. They help break down cultural barriers and bring enjoyment to people. Nothing is off limits. It's either all okay or none of it's okay. And Family Guy is actually one of my favorite shows. Its creator, Seth MacFarlane, he's a leftist in reality. But at least he makes fun of everybody. No one is off limits. He makes fun of stereotypes, beliefs, social issues, and people.
From now on, I too will be abstinent. I'll be as untouched as the turn signal in an Asian woman's car.
How much signal I need to cut across 8 lane? None? I turn now. Good luck, everybody else!
Return to Japanese girls think small versions of things are really cute.
Oh, look at my tiny dog. I'm gonna put it in my tiny purse. Tiny phone. Tiny everything.
We as a society cannot accept this oversensitivity to offense. We can't let it cripple our ability to be critical of ourselves, and we can't use it to silence people that we disagree with. We also can't let it distract us from the actual issues in the world when we pretend like these small offenses are huge problems when they're not, and we're ignoring the actual real problems in the world. It makes us look weak. Political correctness is making us weak, so don't apologize for not being politically correct, and don't apologize for offensive humor.
Apologize.
My apologies.
MSNBC apologizes.
We apologize.
I'd like to apologize.
Political correctness gone mad in the U.S. From media pundits and giggle fests.
I'm a pussy willow branch.
It's really so stupid.
To advertising trying to spice up an old concept like Oreos and milk, to sports managers praising Fidel Castro.
I'm very, very, very sorry.
Even political comedians mixing religion and female body parts.
Maybe women could protect their reproductive organs from unwanted medical intrusions with vagina mangers.
Saying anything in public, even when obviously joking, has become a minefield.
You say something off color, you tweet something off color, all of a sudden you've got 15 people criticizing you for whatever as in an attempt to take you down a notch.
Pushing an increasing number of people into endless apologies.
Anderson Cooper should not have had to give a public apology for giggling at the word pussy willow.
It's really absurd. I mean, people get more angry about a word like pussy willow than they do about, say, a drone strike that kills 30 innocent people in Afghanistan.
We apologize, we really do.
Meaningless political correctness has given rise to meaningless rituals of remorse.
Pussy willow. That's kind of funny. I wanted to tell y'all about one of my favorite comedians of all time, George Carlin. He is right down the center. He's not left and he's not right. He'll make fun of anybody and everybody. He hates it when groups become too serious of themselves, and he explains this in the video I'm about to show you. He's also also an advocate for free speech, and he fought against political correctness. Actually, one time he was arrested for saying bad words in a comedy club. Now, I'm going to play this video for you, and it's rather long, but I really want y'all to watch the whole thing. I can't put into words what he does and what he says here. Only he can do it. And when you watch it and you listen to what he's saying, not only is it funny, but it makes a whole lot of sense. And it does speak to what this entire video that Dire Wolf and I have been making. So please sit back, enjoy, and watch the entire video.
In an earlier book, Brain Droppings, I wrote some things about politically correct language, but I left out a few areas. I neglected 3 important groups of people who have had this awkward, dishonest language inflicted on them by liberals. I omitted those who are crippled, ugly, or stupid. And so, to address these earlier omissions, I'd like to make a brief return visit to that playground of guilty white liberals, political correctness. Political correctness is America's newest form of intolerance, and it's especially pernicious because it comes disguised as tolerance. It presents itself as fairness, yet attempts to restrict and control people's language with strict codes and rigid rules. I'm not sure that's the way to fight discrimination. I'm not sure silencing people or forcing them to alter their speech is the best method for solving problems that go much deeper than speech. Therefore, those among you who are more politically sensitive than the rest of us may wish to take a moment here to tighten up those sphincter muscles, because I'm going to inject a little realism into the dream world of politically correct speech, especially the words we use to describe one another. Perhaps you've noticed that when the politically correct liberal rule makers decide to rename a group of humans they view as victims, they begin by imparting a sense of shame to the group's existing name. And so somewhere over the years, the word cripple has been discarded. No one mentions cripples anymore. That's because in yet another stunning attempt to stand reality on its head, cripples have been assigned a new designation, the physically challenged. The use of physically challenged is an obvious attempt to make people feel better. The idea being, as long as we can't cure these people, let's give their condition a more positive name and maybe it'll distract everyone. It's verbal sleight of hand. The same is true of the ungainly phrase, differently abled. I believe that if a person is going to insist on using tortured language, such as differently abled, then he should be forced to use it to describe everyone. We're all differently abled. You can do things I can't do. I can do things you can't do. Barry Bonds can't play the cello. Yo-Yo Ma can't hit the curveball. They're differently abled. It should be explained to liberals, patiently, that crippled people don't require some heroic designation. It's a perfectly honorable condition. It appears in the Bible. Jesus healed the cripples. He didn't engage in rehabilitative strategies to improve the conditions of the physically disadvantaged. Can't these liberals hear how unattractive this language is, how poorly it sits on the ear? Personally, I prefer plain, descriptive language. For instance, and this is a suggestion that will bother some people, but I'm serious about it. Why don't we just call handicapped people defective? You know? We don't mind talking about birth defects. We don't flinch from that. We say Gunther has a birth defect. Isn't that a concession to the fact that people can be defective? Then what would be wrong with calling those people the physically defective? At what point in life does a person with a birth defect become a person who is differently abled? And why does it happen? I'm confused. Then there are those who don't quite measure up to society's accepted standards of physical attractiveness. The worst of that group are called ugly, or at least they used to be. The PC lingo cops have been working on this, too. And to demonstrate how far all this politically correct, evasive language has gone, some psychologists are actually now referring to ugly people as those with severe appearance deficits. Okay? Severe appearance deficits. So tell me, psychologist, how well does that sort of language qualify for being in denial? These allegedly well-intentioned people have strayed so far from reality that it will not be a surprise for me to someday hear a rape victim referred to as an unwilling sperm recipient. Back to ugly. Regarding people's appearance, the political language police already have in place one comically distorted term, lookism. They say that when you judge a person, or rather size them up, wouldn't want to judge someone, that would be judgmental. If you take their looks into account, you're guilty of lookism. You're a lookist, and those valiant people who fight lookism, many of them unattractive themselves, tell us that one problem is that in our society, those who get to be called beautiful and those who are called ugly are determined by standards arbitrarily set by us. Somehow there's some fault attached to the idea that we, the people, are the ones who set the standards of beauty. Well, we're the ones who have to look at one another, so why shouldn't we be the ones who set the standards? I'm confused. I would say the whole thing was stupid, but that's my next topic, and it would sound like a cheap transition. So, stupid. It's important to face one thing about stupidity. We can't get away from it. It's all around us. It doesn't take a team of professional investigators to discover that there are stupid people in the world. Their presence and its effects speaks for itself. But where do these stupid people come from? Well, they come from American schools. But while they're attending these schools, they're never identified as stupid. That comes later, when they grow up. When they're kids, you can't call them stupid, which may be contributing to the problem. Unfortunately, kids, stupid or otherwise, come under a sort of protective umbrella we've established that prevents them from being exposed to the real world, until at 18 their parents spring them on the rest of us, full grown. There are stupid kids. And I do wish to be careful how I negotiate the minefield of the learning disabled and the developmentally disadvantaged. In other words, those with special needs. All of these being more examples of this tiresome and ridiculous language. I just want to talk about kids who are stupid, not the ones with dings. One of the terms now used to describe these stupid kids is minimally exceptional. Can you handle that? Minimally exceptional. Whatever happened to the old reliable explanation, the boy is slow? Was that so bad? Really? The boy is slow. Some of the other children are quick. They think quickly. Not this boy. He's slow. It seems humane enough to me, but no. He's minimally exceptional. How would you like to be told that about your child? He's minimally exceptional. Oh, thank God for that. We thought he was just kind of, I don't know, slow. But minimally exceptional, wow. Wait till I tell our friends. Political correctness cripples discourse, creates ugly language, and is generally stupid. I haven't quite finished this section. I'm sure I needn't remind you PC people that the opera isn't concluded until the full-figured woman offers her vocal rendering. I know, I really had to strain to get that in. I'm thoroughly ashamed. But before I leave this section, I wanted to make the point that on a practical level, this language renders completely useless at least one perfectly good expression. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king becomes, in the kingdom of the visually impaired, the partially sighted person is fully empowered. Sad, isn't it?
One of the great positives about comedy is that people will go to a show like The Daily Show or SNL, and they'll listen to points of view they disagree with because it's in the form of comedy. Even offensive comedy is easier to absorb than someone trying to sit you down and explain to you why what you believe is wrong. Comedy is a very effective tool discussing very controversial topics, even though it sometimes offends people.
Comedy can be a great way to get past some major traumas you've had in your life, and I'm a testament to that. I've been in abusive relationships. I was even raped once. And now I'm able to joke about it. And that joking helps me get past that. And another good example is while I was overseas, we received incoming fire or indirect fire every single day. We joked about it. We made fun of it. Of course, we were terrified that we were going to die or that we were going to get hit or one of our friends were going to get hurt. That fear is always there. But you can use comedy to strip the power away from fear. And that's what we did. And I can't stand it that the left are trying to take away our ability to get past these traumas using comedy because they want to police words and use political correctness to keep from offending certain individuals. Use comedy. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it trigger you. Grow up.
So in closing, comedy must have the ability to be offensive because it is a way we deal with and cope with serious political and social issues, as well as part of our freedom of speech. The left are destroying comedy by trying to control it with political correctness. It is nonsensical to try to insist that we not ever offend someone, because in life there is conflict, and when there's conflict, people will be offended. You don't have to listen to someone's opinion that you do not like, but that doesn't mean you have the right to take away their platform to speak that opinion.
I want to re-emphasize that comedy has always been an important part to the human experience. Honestly, it has helped societies tear down tyrannies. It brings dictators back down to earth and make them human again so we can defeat them. It helps us get past major traumas in our lives, and it helps break cultural barriers, and it even helps us make friends. But the left want to be these sensitive little fairy marys and not allow people to laugh and enjoy comedy anymore. They want to police words. They want to make words ugly and hard to think and fathom. We need to get past that. We don't need to allow political correctness to win this war. If we want to keep our sanity and keep our cultures and keep our humor, we need to fight the left at every turn, especially in comedy, because comedy is such a powerful tool to us. Don't let them win. Let's keep fighting, and let's fight with humor. Thank you, Dire Wolf, for inviting me onto this collaboration. This has been an amazing one to do. It's been very educational. I know the video got a little long, but I do hope everybody else enjoyed it.
Thank you, Foxy Lady, for joining me and my Cubs to discuss this issue. Cubs, if you wouldn't mind, please check out her channel. She makes some great content. Thank you again, Foxy, for coming. And Cubs, please remember, never apologize for not being politically correct. Dire Wolf, out.